Welcome to our first shuffle session. I'm sure it won't be our last. I'm shuffling this new deck because it still hasn't been shuffled enough. Pay attention to the cards that fall out, and maybe there'll be a reading at the end. But my shuffle sessions are primarily meant for chatting. I know Wednesday was a tough morning for a lot of women of color in my country. I don't think I can say much about how I really feel on here. I'll just say I'm holding my breath until the middle of the month. Then we'll see. Regardless of what happens, let me backtrack. I remember the morning of November 9th, 2016. I remember the silence while commuting to work. Even the radio DJs were quiet and playing music through most of their show. I remember Twitter that morning. I was involved in the literary and publishing world back then, and a lot of my connections on Twitter lived in New York City. And some of them said that the subway was eerily quiet that morning, which I imagine isn't normal for New York City. I work from home now, so I don't know if this Wednesday was a quiet morning in the streets, but I sat in silence. I purposely left my phone in the other room, fed my cat, made my coffee, fed the ancestors, gave them my concerns, and started working. If I got the impulse to scroll through TikTok, I went through my collections and watched old funny videos I saved. To an outsider, it might have looked like I didn't care, but it's the opposite. I knew if I engaged with the reactions online, I would descend into a spiral of hopelessness the way I did back in 2016. And I'm no use to my community if I'm spiraling. I know I haven't shared much about my life on here, so here's a little bit. I've been volunteering for causes I care about for about 15 years now. Mental health awareness, suicide prevention, food insecurity, housing insecurity, etc., etc. I started off by volunteering with charities. Then 2020 happened, and I saw firsthand the functional difference between charity and mutual aid. I was on the board of a pretty large organization, and the shutdown had just occurred. This organization met at a country club once a week, and because we were there so consistently, we had a dedicated server, because the weekly meetings were a lunch meeting. And this server was great. She took care of us. She was a lovely human being. When the shutdown happened, we obviously couldn't keep meeting at the country club. I was in a virtual meeting with the executive board, and these were rich people. I wasn't rich, but they were rich. The kind of rich that had money burning in their pockets, and they also had huge egos. These people want you to know that they donate to charity, but they'll never show up to volunteer. Those kinds of people. And hey, whenever we needed funding for a volunteer project, I was happy to. But anyway, so the meeting was about donating money to help during the pandemic, and they decided to donate to other charities. Toward the end of the meeting, the president proposed that we make a donation to our server. Our server was a single mom who was about to be furloughed. Legally, there was a way that we could give her money, and it was all worked out. We just needed the rest of the board to approve. And they said no. And not just no, they said why. They didn't get it. They said, why would we donate to one person when we could donate to a large charity and help a lot of people? Mind you, they were still going to donate to several charities. This wasn't an either-or proposal. It also wasn't very much, considering that they were about to donate thousands of dollars. The president had only proposed a couple $100 for the server. Their logic might appear sound to some people, but it showed that they didn't understand or empathize with how ineffective it is to get meaningful help from a charity when so many people need help too. She could have paid bills and groceries with the money we wanted to give her, but instead, they were proposing that she take time off from freaking out that she doesn't have a job, take time off from looking for a new job, to go find one of the organizations we were donating to, fill out some form, get in line, and maybe get a box of food, and nothing else. I'm not going to say charities are bad. They have their role. But a charity or institution isn't going to know what you need the way your friends, family, and neighbors know what you need. So that's what I mean when I say we need to focus on community. I've talked mostly about tarot on here. The channel is young and I'm moving in the direction of sharing how to use spiritual concepts in the real world. And we can do this with tarot cards. If you're interested in how, I recommend reading the book 78 Acts of Liberation by Lane Smith. When I talk about living a magical life, that might conjure the image of candles and herbs and tarot cards and meditating. But a magical life is more practical than that. Radical hope and radical perseverance, when it would be easier to spiral, is an example of you exerting your will onto the universe against all odds. That's magic. That's witchcraft. Exerting your will over someone or something over an impossible circumstance is magic. My hope is that you understand what I'm saying, because there's only so much I can say on here. And I hope that you find your role in your community, because I believe we all have different roles in a balanced community. There are the people who observe and preserve. These are the people who report on the feelings of the time. They write articles, they write poetry, they photograph, they film, all for the sake of history. And that might mean that they have to straddle a fence while still maintaining their safety for the sake of keeping a record. There are the organizers, the people who work behind the scenes to fundraise for the community, organize volunteers, work out a cooperative schedule, etc. There are the actors. These are the people who do the physical work. They volunteer, they do outreach, they wave signs and chant in the streets. Then there are the people who soothe, the healers. Whether it's physical or emotional ailment, they are there to help you get better. They tell you what tea to drink and give you words of encouragement. There are probably more roles than that, but I'm simplifying it for this video because I'm just here talking. These roles overlap, but no one can be everything. Not only is that an unfair ask, it's also not sustainable. If all healers are injured or in a bad mental state, who's going to heal the actors or encourage the organizers? If observers are hurt and unable to continue their part, what will happen to that bank of knowledge? How will you reference history when an oppressor makes moves to erase it from the internet, remove it from the books? If organizers are too exhausted, who's planning the next steps? Be upset. Sit with your feelings. If your role is to mobilize people and you use TikTok to do it, by all means, continue. I would just warn against torturing yourself. Okay, editing gem here. In the beginning of the shuffle, we saw the Hangman, which is a card about waiting, but it's also someone who sacrifices themselves in order to attain wisdom or knowledge or information. We saw the Lovers, which represents a team, a duo that is making decisions for the greater good. Nine of Pentacles is a woman who is secure and confident with the decision she made. Eight of Pentacles, someone who is working overtime right now to get something done. The Emperor may apply to two people, but in this context and with this deck of cards, I see this as someone who is power hungry and possibly from New York because of the cards. We saw Ace of Pentacles, an opportunity to make money, and then we saw the Tower, where it all came crashing down. The final spread: Queen of Swords, 10 of Cups, 9 of Pentacles, Ace of Pentacles. The Queen of Swords now has the information that the Hangman was waiting for. 10 of Cups is a wish fulfilled. 9 of Pentacles is a woman who is secure and confident with the decision she made. Ace of Pentacles, new opportunity, and a new strategy in the material world when combining with the Queen of Swords. This reading means whatever you want it to mean. We'll talk soon. Bye.